So today I want to show you how to set up a controller config for XIM Matrix. The idea of today's video is to show you all the important things you need to know to get the most out of your controller. And after having watched this video, you can also easily follow any of my mouse and keyboard config videos and use them with a controller. The setup steps between a mouse and a controller config are actually very similar, and the few differences between the two will be addressed in today's video. But let's get started. The most important choice you must make is about the configuration type. When creating a new config, you will see the following screen. The bottom choice is called Gamepad, Smart Actions Only, whereas the upper one is named Gamepad. Let's first address the lower one. When you pick this configuration, it doesn't matter what kind of game config you use. Your matrix just acts as a pass-through device that adds smart actions on top of it. So regardless of what kind of game you want to play, you can select any kind of game configuration in your XIM manager. I could, for example, use the Apex Legends one for Call of Duty, or the one of a different game. In the advanced settings, you can select the button with which you can load this configuration and adjust the controller rumble. And when swiping one time to the right, you can configure the button bindings. More must not be done here. The following things are very important. This config can be used with any kind of in-game settings. And to adjust your stick sensitivity, you must change the controller sensitivity in the game. Because of these two things, this config is ideal for people who want to keep their in-game settings that they got used to. The only real downside of this configuration type is that it doesn't use a smart translator. As a result, you cannot use smart actions for anti-recoil. Any other smart action will work, but smart actions that utilize sticks won't. When I open a random button binding and proceed to the Smart Action Manager, you can see that there is no aim angle and magnitude. And even if you paste such a smart action into this configuration, it just won't work. For that, you need to choose the other type of config profile, the Gamepad one. This config type uses smart translators and therefore requires very specific in-game settings. You must also select the correct game config for the game you want to play. That means you cannot use Apex Legends for Call of Duty. Another benefit of Gamepad configs is that they offer gyro aiming. When editing such a config, the first thing you must do is to check the required in-game settings. You can do that at the top by pressing the wrench button. This will load the XIM website and show you the correct in-game settings. Do not use any other settings, or else the aim quality of your sticks and the gyro will suffer. At the bottom you can select the aiming sources. There you can choose how to aim in the game. If you only want to aim with sticks, then deactivate the gyro by clicking on it. I usually prefer to play with gyro and analog sticks, so I will activate the gyro again. Below you can adjust the way you want to activate the gyro. I like custom engage the most. It allows me to bind the gyro activation to any kind of button. When swiping to the right, you enter the hip configuration. Here you can adjust your hip sensitivity for the gyro and the stick. Pick values that you feel comfortable with. For the gyro smoothing, I prefer the custom option. The smoothing values you can see here are my favorite ones. These provide a responsive experience with a good amount of aim assist. In the advanced settings, you can further tweak the gyro behavior, but I have no need for that. The advanced settings of the analog stick are quite interesting though. Here you can not only invert the stick, but you can also adjust the aiming behavior. Native means that the stick feels as intended by the game developer. This option will make your stick feel like it would without a XIM. And by switching to custom, you can either use a ballistic curve or you can change the stick calibration. When you open the stick calibration, you can adjust how the stick should behave. You can, for example, tighten the dead zone or remove a stick drift. On my channel, you can find a video on how to make your sticks as precise as possible. While it has been made for Nexus, the steps are the very same for Matrix. I have linked it in the video description. Next, you can swipe to the right to enter the ADS configuration. The setup steps are the same as in the hip configuration. If you want to use completely independent settings from your hip configuration, then you can untick the box at the bottom. This will only apply to the advanced settings though. Once you have adjusted your ADS configuration, you can proceed to the button bindings. Here you can bind and adjust all buttons. The only complicated thing to bind are analog triggers. Let's create a hair trigger to explain the process. First, I have to delete the analog binding of the right trigger. This will otherwise overlap with my hair trigger and make it unusable. At the bottom, I can now create a new button binding. I will select the right trigger position binding and assign the right trigger action to it. Similar to trigger stops, I can now decide at which trigger distance this action should be activated. I will go with 50%. When I press my trigger past the 50% mark, my weapon will start to shoot. If you instead use 1%, then you have a hair trigger. Next, I will create a second right trigger position binding. This time, I will move the slider to 1% and assign the motion action to it. The result is that when I start to slightly press my trigger now, the gyro of my controller will be activated. And when I press the trigger past the 50% mark, then my weapon will shoot on top of that. That is my preferred way to activate the gyro. You can do the same for the ADS trigger if you want to. At last, here is how you modify smart actions for controllers. I will now paste a smart action code from one of my mouse and keyboard videos into this configuration. It is a smart action for Soldier from Overwatch that handles his weapon recoil. Once it has been inserted, you must only make a single change, which is the button assignment at the top. For that, press and hold the button icon at the very top for a few seconds. This will let you change the button that this smart action is bound to. I will use the right trigger position binding. After that, I can select the trigger percentage at which this binding should be activated. Since my shooting action has been bound to 50%, I will use the same percentage here. That is already it. More must not be done here. As you just saw, the process is quite easy. Whenever you paste a smart action from a mouse user into your configuration, the only thing you must change is the button assignment at the very top. Anything else can stay as it is. The result will then be the same as for the mouse user. If you have watched this video until this point, then you will be able to follow any Matrix or Nexus configuration video from this channel and adapt it to your controller configuration. When doing that, you will quickly see that the differences between a mouse and controller setup are so small that you will probably only have to make 2 to 3 adjustments. For the most part, these are the stick sensitivity and button bindings. Everything else can be copied without any problems and will work just as well for a controller as for a mouse. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button or maybe even subscribe to this channel to not miss out on any of the upcoming videos. Also, contrary to popular belief, this channel is not an official XIM channel. I run this channel in my free time to bring you guys the latest XIM news and tricks. So if you want to support what I do, then maybe consider to join the YouTube channel membership. Channel members usually get around 1 to 4 weeks of early access to all new videos. Plus, we also have a nice little Discord to discuss XIM settings and other stuff. But that's about it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching and I will maybe see you in the next one.